Hello, Rock and Roll Daycare community. Happy Tuesday. It's Barb, your curriculum director, and it is our day for Tuesday training tools. I hope everyone had a wonderful weekend and is having a great start to your week. We are in the month of July and we are wrapping up our monthly theme of child development. And we started the month, reflecting on our journals and really reading over the beautiful intro that Zoe, our owner, has written in the beginning of the journals that does a lovely job at highlighting the importance of child development in Montessori. And with that reflection, I kind of turned it back over to you and I asked, what would you like to learn about child development? And with no surprise, the majority of your answers was about behaviors. And the questions around that, whether it is a specific behavior or classroom management around behaviors. And I say no surprise because I feel like that is always the number one question when it comes to our children. So kind of like last month when we did prepared environment and I kind of switched up my agenda and we really talked about, setting up materials. I'm kind of doing that this month too, because there was a lot that I've been reflecting on, and based on your wonderful answers to last week's weekly focus, I kind of want to go a little deeper into it. I didn't want to leave it at that because there's so much that goes into how we are looking at children's behaviors, how we are helping to guide it, that I think it deserves a little more than a week. So although it's, again, my second month, that's going a little off topic, I do it based off of, your responses. And I think it's really important that we give some of these topics a little extra time, because it just cannot be summed up in 1 week. Okay. So last week we talked about the difference between an emotion and a behavior. And um, again, some really great responses in terms of the reflection of how we guide an emotion. We guide an emotion, with acknowledgement and acceptance, and then how we guide a behavior. We set boundaries to make sure that there is no confusion, that you can acknowledge a child when they are upset, but if they are hurting someone or if they're hurting themselves or the environment, we're not going to passively sit there and be like, I acknowledge that you're hurting this other child. Like, that's when we set the boundary. And that can be confusing, and I understand that. So that's why I wanted to dedicate last week to really break down the difference between an emotion and a behavior, because I think sometimes we look at it as one. Okay. But today I kind of even want to take a step further. Even maybe I did this in the wrong order, um, but wanted to share more about connection. Okay. So let me pull this up and we can talk a little bit about connection. And this is what I want our focus to be on this week. Because with child development, we can understand every part of, how a child develops and how their brain develops and how they, milestones. And we can read every single book. We can have all the knowledge in the world about all of these, these wonderful resources when it comes to the children in our care. However, if we do not have a connection with a child, it is pretty meaningless. It doesn't make, it's not, nothing is ever going to click. So when I say we're going to rewind, I mean, let's rewind even further than, deciphering the difference between emotion and behavior, and remember the importance of connection with the children, and how that plays into a behavior, and how we can help build and foster these relationships with the children. You are their caregivers for a good majority of the week, so it's really important that you have this connection with them. And a connection doesn't always mean a really positive, fun, relationship with a child where it's all joy. Like, connection means that they have trust in you and they know that they are going to be taken care of when they're with you. And that is shown through setting boundaries and making sure that things are consistent for them. And then they build that trust, and then they build that connection with you. Okay. So if you know me, and I wish I could know everyone on a personal level, and these weren't via video and we could be having a live conversation right now. I love behaviors, and that's why it's really hard for me to only spend 2 weeks on behaviors. So I always encourage, if you have questions about behaviors, please, please, please reach out to me. This was before I was into the Montessori world. I was in early intervention, which I did a lot of focus on behavior. And there's a lot of things we can think of with behavior. If you've watched some of my previous Tuesday training tools, we talk about the function of the behavior. It's really important to find out why. Why is a child doing this behavior? They are trying to tell us something. This is the way they are communicating. And if we can find out the why, we can guide that behavior with more with more purpose. And if you have veteran teachers in your centers, ask them about ABC charts. I guarantee you they will be happy to share that knowledge with you and, more about functions of a behavior to help guide a behavior. Okay. We talk about consistent follow through. Be careful with your choice of words. If you say that there's one more minute when the child has the book and then you let it go on, that child's really if you don't have that consistent follow through with the words you are saying, that child will lose trust. They won't really understand where that boundary is. So just have consistent follow through. This is why when a new teacher comes on, we do the creating alignment document so you both understand what the ground rules are of the classroom, to then be able to serve the children with consistency and with a really solid understanding of the why we're doing everything. And here's my spelling error for the week. Like there is for every single week, I need to do my spell check. And then sometimes we can change the environment. We can look at a behavior and say, oh, there's a lot of running going on in this classroom. Maybe I'm going to change the environment so it doesn't give them that opportunity. And these are all really great ways to look at a behavior and to try to help guide it. But again, we are rewinding this week. So we're going the other way. And we are starting with connection. And I want you to ask yourself this question: what can I do to strengthen my relationship with this child so I can become a bigger influence? Sometimes when we think of behaviors, we're thinking about them when they're happening, or we're thinking what you should be doing during that meltdown, during that tantrum, during, that point of frustration that the child is showing you through that behavior. And it doesn't happen then. It happens almost every other time. That's not the behavior of how you're building that relationship with the child. Because again, if you can't have an influence on the child, you can't have an influence if you don't have a relationship. And it's all about the relationships. Okay. And I give this example. Sometimes I'll hear a substitute come into a classroom or a new teacher, and the teacher of the classroom will say, well, they just don't listen to that teacher. Well, why do you think? They don't know that teacher, right? And maybe they're going to test some boundaries, or maybe it's just not meaningful to them to have to listen to someone that they don't know. I mean, would you listen to a complete stranger? Would and give all that trust to them? Maybe after a while, after you built the relationship, you would, but maybe not off the bat. And children are no different. Okay, so we can't have an influence on a child. We can't, have a relationship if we don't have that relationship. So let's see. Why is this? No. Okay. So how do we build relationships? Well, think about last week, how we validate emotions and that we're accepting to children and we're understanding, and say things, I hear you. I understand you're upset. I am here when you're ready. Right? We don't want to dismiss a child or make them feel unheard. A child's having a meltdown over something that you as an adult may think is really small, but to them it's the end of the world. And sometimes adults can really dismiss us. You're fine. It's okay. Right? And to us it is. Like to us, maybe we're a little frustrated too. But at the end of the day, that's kind of making a child feel dismissed or unheard. And that's not how we build a relationship. We want to be validating those emotions like we talked about last week. And it's not, just as a general reminder, it's not our job to fix a child or to change a child. A child's behavior is naturally going to change as they mature. Because again, remember, their brain is under construction right now. So a lot of what they are getting upset about or is just lack of impulse, and them learning these boundaries, and we're the ones that provide that to them. So as they mature, as they that self-control develops, and they're able to work through these emotions with more ease with the tools that we give them, and their behavior will naturally change with it, and also it will change as your relationship grows. So instead of thinking, how can I change this child's behavior? I want you to try thinking, how can I help this child in this moment? And that's really hard because I really wish I could sit here because I know behaviors are frustrating and I know tantrums. And when behaviors start to arise and then another child in the classroom starts to, you know, to copy a similar behavior, all you want sometimes is just that answer. What do I do? Give me the answer so I can do it. And that's just not the way that the child, dealing with these behaviors works. In the Montessori philosophy and in the rock and roll daycare philosophy, we really, really have to take a step back and remember the importance of this connection and to look at the whole picture and take advantage of the positive moments to build that trust and that relationship with the child. And then when you are in the thick of it and there is that moment of the child having a tantrum or having just an emotionally hard time, we want to get away from how can I make this stop to how can I make this something that's going to help the child, because this is learning. Remember, this is how they're learning, and this is just part of the process. Not an easy process, but it is part of the process. Okay, I think that was it. Okay, so now I'll do that. So yeah, was it stop my screen? Okay, perfect. So yeah, so just think about the connection and think about how you are fostering that every day within your classroom. It's hard. We have more than, you have multiple children in your classroom. Our preschool classroom has a lot of kiddos, and your time is limited, maybe sometimes with the one-on-ones that you do have with children. But I promise you, if you become more mindful with how you are building those relationships with the children, and if you are sharing those reflections with your co-teacher, that will help with behaviors, even at the toughest moments, because like I said, nothing can get accomplished if you don't have that connection with the children. So reflect on it, share your reflections with your co-teachers, see how you can maybe change some things, or maybe you can just give yourself a good pat in the back to say, you know what, I do have some really strong relationships with my children. That is something I'm really proud of, and I'm going to share that with my teaching community so they can learn too how to build those relationships. Either way, we're all learning and we're all in this together, so it's really important that when we're thinking about behaviors in children, that we are, we're all on the same page and just working towards the same goal, which is to help the child and to guide that behavior into something that is either more acceptable or more functional, or just, getting to the function or the root of why that behavior is happening to help that child in their day to day. Really, really important work you all do every single day. It is not easy. Thinking about this is making me exhausted too, because I know the emotional toll it can take on your heart and your mind and your patience and your nerves. It's not easy, and no one is saying that it is. So regardless, I hope you give yourselves a round of applause for everything you do for these children each and every day. It is the most important work that you can do in our society. And I have all the respect for all the educators that work for Rock and Roll. So a deep thank you, and I hope you're able to take something away from this and have some meaningful conversations. And next week we jump into our next theme in August. So wow, we're already done with July, and I look forward to where these Tuesday training tools have gone. Like I said, I have enjoyed that they have kind of veered off track the last couple months, and I think that's wonderful. So let's continue in that direction. I love your feedback. I love your answers. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I will see you next week. Have a great one, everyone. Bye-bye.